Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rocky Top Insider Diamond Pass podcast here on this Cinco de Mayo edition. Monday, May 5th, coming at you at night. You're probably listening on May 6th or later. Hope you've had a great start to the month. Coming at you after a 2 week absence, too, or I should say 1 week, as we didn't do a show last week. Some sickness ailed me last week, so we had to take a week off. But back this week to talk about Tennessee baseball's series loss to Auburn, Tennessee's fourth series loss in the past 5 weekends, third straight at home. So vibes aren't too good surrounding the baseballs right now. A lot to get into here as we do our first pod of May. But first, Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel like we talked about this a while back. Was it the A&M? Did you miss the A&M doubleheader?
Yep,
Yeah,
for Joseph's wedding. Yep.
that's right. But I was going through things in my head yesterday as Tennessee was losing the third game. Not counting the non-conference series, the nobody non-conference series. I have covered 4 Tennessee baseball series in person this year, and they are 0 for 4 in those 4 series. So I might be the bad luck. It might be me.
Yeah, because Ole Miss, Bama, South Carolina have all been on the road, and
Yeah.
then Florida was at home, and that was when basketball season was still in. So
Yeah, was in Nashville for the SEC basketball tournament that weekend.
yeah, you're
So
the problem, Ryan. It's all your
I
fault.
am. Yeah,
So
I think it's fair. Yeah, A&M, Kentucky, LSU, and now Auburn.
I was going into this feeling like the majority of this podcast would just kind of be us trying to figure out what the biggest issue is for Tennessee baseball, because there's a couple on the list. Well, we may have
We
figured it
solved
out
it.
just a minute 50 in. It may just be you.
It's a good
No,
podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
yeah. Well, that'll do it. Yep. Kidding, of course, but yeah, that is hilarious that you haven't seen a dub yet, and you might not see one. Who knows? It's where you only have 2 options left. So,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
hey,
really, one option for the postseason because I won't be at Arkansas.
yeah, true, fair point. Well, let's get into it. Obviously, a odd weekend with the
Yeah.
weather messing up pretty much everything. You name it, it was pretty much altered due to weather. Countless delays. Game one, top half of the first gets underway late Friday night, but then stopped because it was just a torrential downpour. Knoxville mound was not fit to continue, and Auburn didn't have to throw Sam Dutton. That put Tennessee, back against the wall already, kind of burning Liam Doyle there on Friday, making it to where Tennessee couldn't pitch him on Saturday. And, despite a good Tegan Coons makeshift start, Tennessee falls 8-1 in the opener because the offense couldn't do anything. Wins a thriller in game two in extras, having been played on Sunday because of weather. And Liam Doyle made his return to the mound there, where Chris Newstrom gets a pinch hit, walk-off RBI single in the 11th. So a pretty thrilling finish there. Think, hey, maybe that's the momentum Tennessee needs to go into a pivotal rubber match. Tennessee's offense goes flat once again in a 6-1 defeat. Did I have that? I had that mixed up. 8-1 was game 3. 6-1 was game 1.
One.
So, yeah, not a great offensive series overall. I'd say for Tennessee, a pretty solid game 2, but games 1 and 3 plague the weekend. Ryan, as yet again this offense fails to do enough to put this team over the edge.
Well, I'm going to start. We can get into some of the bit more bigger picture stuff and as we go, but I think the thing that I want to start with is, and you hit on it there, Tennessee wins game 2 of the series on Sunday after they were down in the ninth inning. Dalton Bargo hits a 1-out solo home run to tie it, and they win in extra innings. And there's the whole brouhaha where with Liam Doyle where he ends up getting ejected, and just like a good, Tennessee has played so much like bad baseball and just like the pure fundamentals. And here was a situation where Auburn's trying to quite literally steal a run by stealing home. And
Mm-hmm.
Doyle was alert, and they played good pickle defense, like just good fundamental, got the job done, riled things up. They go and win the game, and it's like, all right, here you go, great for mojo. And despite the fact that the rain delay, and Doyle not pitching on Friday or only pitching an inning and not being able to start game 1, like that completely threw off Tennessee's pitching. And I'm like, man, this Tennessee pitching staff, like they get 7 or 8 innings from Liam Doyle, and they struggled to piece together 27. And
Exactly.
despite all of that, guys stepped up. Tanner Franklin stepped up. Tegan Kuhn stepped up, his longest outing of the year. Dylan Loy stepped up, his longest outing
Yep.
of the year. And you go into game 3, which was just a 7-inning game, so 2 less innings you got to cover, and you had AJ Russell and you had Nate Snead and you had Braden Crenshall. It's like, all right, Tennessee's pitching is actually in a pretty good spot, and they just lay an egg. And it different, not quite as dramatic, but similar to last week, where at LSU, Tennessee just a demoralizing loss in game 1, a game that they in some ways gave away in the 9th inning, and they come back and play one of the more
Really well.
complete games of the season in game
Yeah.
2.
Exactly.
And I think it was maybe Cannon Peoples who was talking to us after that game, talking to the media, and he said, Tony told the guys that we had some people that took a stand, and it was like, this is a good turning point. And then Tennessee lays an egg and plays terrible in game 3. Or it just feels like Tennessee cannot build any positive momentum. They cannot stack good things together right now. One line I think I wrote in a story, and it's true. It's kind of mean, but it's true. It's like Tennessee just feels allergic to good things happening right now. Like sometimes it does, but it's obviously not by accident. When the good things happen, they're doing good things, but they just cannot stack it at all.
Like if it can go wrong, it will type of deal.
I mean, the one that it was unbelievable, and I tweeted about it. The 5th and 6th inning in game 2, which obviously is the game Tennessee wins. The game's tied. I think it was 2-2 maybe at that point, but it was a tie game going into the 5th and 6th inning. Auburn got no hits, no walks, scored a run. Tennessee got 4 hits, 2 doubles, and they didn't score a run. They got 4 hits in 2 innings, and Auburn had 0 with 0 walks. It was tied, and they're somehow losing after 2 innings. And you're like, how does this happen? How is this possible? I joked with somebody. I was like, I feel like Tennessee leads the country right now, at least over the last month. They have to lead the country in innings where they get 2 hits and they don't score a run. Like, it's just, even when they're doing good things, it feels like you're not seeing the results of it.
Even in game 2, I want to say Tennessee with runners on was 8 of 23. And that's actually not that bad, but it just felt like runners in scoring position. Yeah.
That almost to the point. They had a lot of hits with runners on base, but they still didn't score that many runs off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, runners in scoring position 4 of 16. So it wasn't as bad as maybe I thought, but it just felt like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you had one of those hits where I'm blanking on who had the hit, but Cannon Peoples gets thrown out on the plate with a hit on runners in scoring position.
You even in the extras when Manny's like goes to third, it's like what is going on, but they ended up winning, but still just stuff like that, head scratching plays, head scratching occurrences tend to happen a lot.
Yeah, there's almost more of them in game 2 this weekend, because that's probably from an
just have more
standpoint.
Opportunities. Got on base more, so more opportunities for weird things to happen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they probably had more opportunities in that game than they did in game 1 and game 3 combined. So no, you're right. Weird things, base running mistakes. It feels like Tennessee can't get out of its own way at times.
Well, you talk about the pitching and how bad it laid an egg in game 3, and you go to LSU and how bad it was there in a 12-2 run rule loss. But, I maintain the belief that the offense is the main culprit of Tennessee's struggles in the last month. 3 times in the last 3 series has Tennessee scored 1 run in a game, and you add on 2 more games in which Tennessee only scored 2 runs. So that would be 5 games in the last 3 series in which Tennessee has scored 2 or less runs. What do you think is the main culprit of Tennessee's struggles? I know you've been lower on the bullpen and you were ahead of it as far as the struggles of this pitching depth that Tennessee has. But, do you think that, okay, if one thing needs to get fixed for Tennessee to make a run in the postseason, is it still the arms in your eyes, or is it the offense?
No, it's the offense. Because the offense almost feels broken at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it's from the standpoint that I always said the hitting, I always said the pitching, because in part, I thought the hitting was just going to get right. And I'll say one of the things I think has been the biggest issue the last couple of weeks, they've hit 2 home runs the last weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the big reasons I thought this...
Yeah, Bargo and Cannon, yeah.
Bargo and Cannon, yeah. Part of the reasons I thought this offense would get going is I was like, yeah, it's not going to be elite because they're not great in the back, and they're banking on some freshmen, and it's not 1 to 9 great, but I really like the guys at the top. and Gavin Keelan and Andrew Fisher, and certainly Hunter Hensley has been really good. Dean Curley, Reese Chapman, and with expecting things for guys, you're expecting power, and Tennessee just hasn't gotten that, especially the last couple weeks. Keelan hasn't hit for much power. Fisher's had some good at bats, has had some hits, but it feels like he hasn't had a home run in a while. And Hensley has had it. He's just not a huge home run guy. It's been a lot of doubles.
No,
yeah. I think I'm far enough in at this point that I'm just going to have to die on the defending Dean Curley hill. And I will say, again, I think he's getting on base more than people might expect, just from the vibes of it, essentially. But there's no power. There's no power at all. So a guy that you're expecting to get some power from, there's no power. And then Reese Chapman has really been struggling since the Ole Miss series. So all that just to say, the reasons I thought this offense would be able to overcome a clearer weakness was I thought the guys at the top would hit for more power and would be more consistent and kind of be able to carry this offense. And in the last 2 weeks, especially, you could probably go back further. The offense, the top production from the top's not been great, and the power has especially not been there.
And it's worse because Tennessee plays to hit for power. They play to work walks and hit homers. So when you approach things like that, I'm not a baseball aficionado or anything, but it just seems to me that that's Tennessee's purpose when it goes to the plate is to hit, to primarily hit for power and to work walks. And Tennessee's looking at a lot of pitches right now. I think that want to work walks and do that and see the pitches to where you can hit a home run. Tennessee's just swinging less and less and is getting rung up more and more. And sure, the umpiring game 1 was terrible. There was a lot of bad calls this weekend, and things didn't go Tennessee's way, and all that frustration built up for Tony Vitello. Of course, gets ejected in game 3. I'm not saying it was the best case scenario for it didn't set up well for Tennessee with the way the calls were going, but still, there's just a lot of backwards Ks on this team, and I think that's become a problem in these past few series.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think just to your point is maybe zooming out a little bit, kind of what we just hit on. You're right, this is a home run walk offense, and we just talked at length of the frustrations in game 2 with how bad Tennessee was with runners on base, or at least maybe not pure hitting statistics, but capitalizing on those opportunities, I should say. I think there was one instance in game 2, I can't remember what inning, where someone hit a leadoff double, and then Tennessee bunted him over. Bargo bunted him over, and then Chapman, I guess Levi first struck out, and then Chapman struck out. And it's you just put the ball in play, give yourself a chance. So, yeah, that's always kind of been the philosophy to see a lot of pitches. So, I don't know. That feels a little bit above my pay grade, but I would definitely agree with any fan or anybody that says it's frustrating to watch the amount of Ks looking. I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's above both of our pay grades. You're right, but I've been thinking the last couple of days. I'm like, okay, Tennessee's offense is just really bad. It's just not good at all. Like you said, it feels broken, and I'm like, it's not a talent thing because at least you don't think it is. And look, Keelan, Bargo, Fisher, and Hensley, I'm not putting blame on them. Keelan and Hensley have been great contact hitters all year long. They get on base. Fisher's worked loads of walks and still has a really good homer count. Bargo has come up clutch a lot and had a great, really.
Is that a season you would have signed up for? If
you
would have said it just, you would have said before the year, Bargo's SEC numbers, you would have taken it.
Yeah, those 4 have been really good. But the problem is for this Tennessee offense is that, and I think, we were talking about this in a text thread a couple of days ago, it's that none of those guys really strike fear in opposing arms. Fisher's power does, but it's not just overwhelming right now. And you're right, it feels like he hasn't had a homer in a while. It's not like even an Ike Irish or an Ethan Petrie when he's healthy. It feels like all these SEC guys, maybe besides Kentucky, have one dude who you're just like, man, this guy is a dog. He is just gonna rake, and you can't really get around it. Doesn't really feel like Tennessee has that guy. They have guys who work good ABs and can put the bat on the ball, but I don't know if they have that guy who's that imposing this year. And that's okay if you're balanced and complete, but Tennessee's not balanced and complete. They only have 4 guys. So it amplifies all this to the max.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say Fisher is that,
He's the
but
1000% the closest thing, but it's
to,
not
to
been
your
enough
point,
to be, yeah.
and I don't even want this to be like, oh, he's not, Andrew Fisher's not clutch, or he can't, because I don't think that's
No.
necessarily the case. 24 games is a really, really small sample size when it comes to baseball. And that's what we're talking
Yeah.
about here, the games that matter of SEC play. It doesn't feel like Andrew Fisher has done a lot of damage when Tennessee's offense has been struggling. You want that guy you're talking about, you want them to be able to spark things for offense. When things aren't going well, they're going to show up and they're going to hit a big home run. And it's not at all that Fisher's just been bad. I mean, I think this weekend was a good example.
Yeah,
He
yeah, like
went 4
364.
for 11.
Yeah.
He had 2 walks. He got on base at a high clip. He did good things. But to your point, when the offense is not balanced and there's nobody else stepping up, you're like, Fisher is that guy that we're talking about. He's the closest thing to it. You kind of want him to be able to carry the load, I guess, which is not fair to necessarily ask him to do. But I think to the point you're getting at, like that's kind of what they need Fisher to be with some of this offense's shortcomings.
Yeah. And like I said, I've just been trying to figure out, like I said, I don't think it's a lack of talent, but just what is wrong with this Tennessee offense. I think it's the way when we talk about looking at pitches and just how their approach is live and die by walks and homers, and without the power that doesn't really work, and just the lack of pop and consistency beyond those four. I mean, we can talk about Dean Curley. There's no reason to, it's already been talked about enough. I think everyone kind of knows Dean Curley's had a rough go of it, but it's not definitely not a talent thing with him. I think it's largely mental, but you're not going to take him out of the lineup, so it's not really worth discussing ad nauseum. And the bottom of the lineup's just been too inconsistent. Manny had some good moments, but I don't know. It's
I
not an offense that is going to win games for you right now. So then it creates, okay, Tennessee's a team that's going to play low scoring games and have to eke out wins. Well, when the pitching lays eggs like it does in game 3, it's going to be really damn hard to win series.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think almost maybe what's this stick on the offense. I think this is my last point. What's almost most jarring when you look back at this weekend, some of the back of the order guys, some of the guys that haven't been great had good weekends. Cannon Peebles keeps on stacking good weekends in the
Yeah.
back of the lineup. Levi Clark was in the starting lineup for 3 days, and he had a really nice weekend. Manny wasn't great. There was some inconsistency. There were some really bad swings. The breaking balls away have given him issues this season, but even he had some nice moments at the plate. So I think,
yeah, game 2 was his good game. He had both of his hits came in one game. I remember.
Yes, game 2. So I think it almost becomes more troubling when you're looking at this weekend and you're like, man, Tennessee's offense was terrible in game 1 and game 3. And then you kind of look at it as a whole, and some of those guys that you're not expecting much from, and it's like, man, it's a cherry on top when you can get good production from them. Some of those guys had nice weekends, and it just didn't really seem to matter for Tennessee.
Yeah, 27 hits on the weekend for Tennessee, but 17 came in one game. So,
and they scored 6 runs.
5.
It's crazy.
5 runs, but yeah,
5.
still.
They scored 5 runs, even crazier. Yeah,
Yep.
even crazier.
Yeah, 6 hits in game 1, and then that would make 4 in game 3.
Yeah, and maybe just they had 2 guys get on base in the first inning. I think maybe Carly was a walk, but it was like the first inning they had some opportunities, and then it just didn't feel like they hardly threatened the rest of the day. I guess someone hit a home run late in that game, didn't they?
No.
Yeah, Peebles hit a home run late in game 3. So they have 3 home runs the last 2 weekends, not just 2.
I thought you were talking about game 1. Yes, Peebles, when it was 7-0, hit a homer, made it 7-1. Yep.
Peebles has 2 home runs because he hit the ball that kind of put the game away on Saturday in Baton Rouge. So Tennessee has 3 home runs to correct that from earlier in the last 2 weeks.
Like I said, we don't really need to get into a lot of individual stuff. I want to talk about the pitching, but just one individual I think we need to talk about is Levi Clark. You said he hit 300 on the weekend, lots of good ABs. With the infield kind of set the way it is, it, kind of prevents more opportunities for Ariel. Antigua, of course, I know Manny played third, so Bargo played left, so that hurt Abernathy and Newstrom's opportunities on the weekend to start in the outfield. But my point is it opens up the DH spot, and I don't think you're going to start a Jay Abernathy or Ariel, of course, in that spot, or Stone. That's why Levi Clark gets these nods. And hey, I think he made the most of them. And for a guy who struggled so mightily in SEC play early on, he's a guy that is doing a good job at the plate, in my opinion. And he had a pretty complete weekend too. Each game, it felt like he had a good approach.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you had a good tweet about it. I guess going into Sunday, so the final 9 innings of the weekend over 2 games. And he's, like he's got a different gear in his bat than some of those other guys do with some of the power. And I think you kind of already thought this at the time, but especially looking back at Tony's comments last Tuesday after Northern Kentucky. Is that who they played last Tuesday? I think. Where
Yep.
he's like, we'd love to have 12 starting spots, but we got 9, and we're going to roll with the guys we think are our best 9, and that's good enough. It's good enough. If it's not, it's not. And some of that was the pitching staff too. I think that's kind of telling for him to have said that, and then they started the same starting lineup all 3 games over the weekend. So that's kind of my expectation that Levi Clark's going to be that DH. Third with Manny would be the one spot that I could see, maybe a little bit of deviation on. Maybe Ariel gets a shot or Bargo, and then we've talked about it. You have that versatility with Bargo, able to play left and third. But to your point of Levi Clark, even some of his outs I thought were really good at bats where he hit the ball hard. And that was, again, for an offense that there were not a lot of positive signs over the weekend. That was certainly one of them.
And even his strikeouts, he had a couple of strikeouts that were 8 to 10 pitches, making the pitcher work. So I just felt like he had a pretty solid approach all 3 games. And talking about just guys who can get reps, really feels like Tony Vitello loves Chris Newstrom. It's felt like that all season, but him turning to Newstrom in that big moment, Newstrom, of course, delivering with the ball at the middle, comes in for Reese Chapman early in game 3. So certainly a guy Tony trusts a lot. All right, let's move on to the pitching, unless you have any other offense notes.
Nope, I'm good.
I want to start with Tegan Kuntz because this is a guy who had struggled for a couple of weeks. AJ Russell takes over the Sunday starting role. And then with Doyle being burned for game 1 after, throwing the top half of the first on Friday, Tennessee has to turn elsewhere. I didn't really know what Tennessee was going to do, but it made a lot of sense to go to Kuntz rather than an AJ Russell and not mess up the starting rotation, right? Kuntz is the 4th starter right now. So that's naturally where Tennessee turned. And he delivered, man. It was an ugly game for Tennessee, and it's just depressing late. Like this game was just depressing as all get out as it dragged on. But Tegan Kuntz was probably the biggest bright spot, I'd say. He and Bargo had a 2-hit day, but 4 2/3, only gave up a couple runs, struck out 6. That was a career high. 5 hits allowed. The breaking ball was working really good. It was the best he's looked probably all season. Like I'd venture to say that, like you said, a season-long outing for him, 74 pitches. This is a really good development for Tennessee to have Kuntz be this guy, because on a conventional series, you'd expect Liam Doyle to obviously pitch a lot more, right? And when you look at how Tennessee was able to piece together Saturday without Kuntz, without Doyle, okay. So Kuntz being a guy who could do this on a Sunday would be very, very valuable right now.
Yeah, it would be. I think, again, like, what does it look like? Well, let's first do his performance. I think probably better than numbers even looked, because he gave up 5 hits and 2 of them were bunt singles.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is kind of hilarious to look at just from a stat sheet standpoint. And I don't really think, in my memory serves, Tennessee didn't really have much of a play on either of them. They were 2 really good bunts. But yeah, no, it was, especially given the moment, as good as he's looked all year. I think, it becomes a question of, clearly Tennessee wants to go with AJ Russell as his game 3 starter. I don't anticipate to see that change this weekend. And Kuntz in one relief outing at LSU was really bad. It was technically a relief outing this week, but it was basically a start. I imagine, he was coming in to start today, and he was really good. So can Tennessee get this Tegan Kuntz? Can they get it from him in relief? Because I think in the immediate, I don't think they're going to go away from AJ yet, if they do at all.
It would just wouldn't feel I don't think it'd be good vibes if
It'd be
Tennessee already pulled
counterproductive.
the plug on AJ Russell. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Like, if you're gonna do it, go all in on it, and you haven't seen enough. And even AJ Russell's inning, which he gave up 3 runs after looking super dominant in the first 2 frames in Game 3, they weren't super hard hit balls, if memory serves. It was just
No, the
finding
first
gaps.
two were not.
Right, it was just finding some gaps. So,
I
uh,
thought, yeah, well, let's tie in AJ to this,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
can circle back to Coons a little bit. But AJ's stat sheet looks worse
horrific.
against
Yeah.
Auburn than it did against LSU. He was 10 times better than he was against
Mhm.
LSU. He was so much better. Um, really bad luck on the first 2. The third ball was hit hard, but even then it was on the ground. So, if it gets hit at somebody, maybe you have a double play ball and he gets another opportunity and things look differently. So, yeah, I thought he looked way better. Obviously, you would still like to see him get through a third inning or get into a fourth. So I don't want to just be completely sunshine
Right.
and rainbows. But to the Tegan Coons part of it, you're right. One, it would be really bad vibes to, I think, switch it up now. But 2, like to me, AJ, it doesn't even make sense because AJ looked better. His first SEC start
Yeah.
was not very good, and then he looked good his second start as they continue to kind of build him up. So, yeah, I guess just summing that up, I thought AJ pitched well.
Yeah, allowed 1 base runner in the first 2 innings, and it was a walk
Walked to Ike
to
Irish,
Ike
who
Irish. They're
dominated him.
literally just gets on base every time he came to the plate. So, yeah, I mean, I thought, okay, wow, AJ Russell's completely back after those first 2 innings. I'm like, here we go. Like, shades of Texas Tech. Russell's back. And 3 singles later, he's bounced and it's just gone in the blink of an eye. The outing, that is, it's over. But yeah, you're right. He looked 10 times better than he did at LSU. It's a positive sign to move forward. Russell and Coons, man, if those guys can just hit their ceiling, that's a dangerous combo in a Game 3. If Phillips, Franklin, Loy can get things done on a Saturday, you just ride Doyle, and on a Friday, it's not that the pitching's not that bad. Like, there's only a few guys you can really trust right now, but if they're all going to be good, Tennessee's got a good pitching staff still. I still hold that belief. There's one guy who's the panic button is being smashed on, but everything else is, you can see the lights with everybody else, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yes. No, you're right. I think that's true. I would say with Coons, you want to see more consistency because he'd struggled a lot
Yeah.
going into this outing.
My point though is you can see the light on all these guys. You can see the light on
Yes.
Tanner Franklin, on Loy. Man, what Loy boys
What did
stand
Loy
the
boys
hell up.
rise up?
3-2. What a just shove sesh that was. And Coons, Russell, you saw the light. Doyle's the stud. He's the best player on the team. All these guys have the light, but like Aaron Rodgers, stuck in the darkness for right now, and he's a hell of a pitcher. And look, man, he was arguably one of Tennessee's top MVPs down the stretch last year, but he cannot figure it out right now, and that's Nate Snead. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do a little bit to just set the stage first. He comes in, allows all 3 runs inherited from AJ Russell to score. He allows another run in that inning. I think worked a 1-2-3 fourth inning and allowed 2 more runs in the fifth. He came in the ninth inning of Game 2, and Dylan Loy gives up a hit. 1 base runner he allowed in 3 2/3. He scores on Snead, and Snead, obviously Friday night at LSU, he does not get any help from Dean Curley. But I guess we didn't podcast last week, so I didn't say it on here, but I've said it a couple different places. It still, at the end of the day, was 1 out, tying run at the plate, and your best bullpen arm on the mound. You still needed to win the game, even though Dean Curley made some mistakes. So, yeah, I mean, it's not been good. He's really struggled. It's been for a while now. Here's the take for you. Baller strike here from this take. Nate Snead, it's the Dean Curley of the pitching staff.
No, yeah, strike. Good. You're the pitcher, so strike. Yeah. You're not hitting, mistake your pitching. So yes, strike.
It's like, it's a problem. He needs to be better. But you're not going to change anything. You're going to keep riding with him. Maybe you slightly alter some of the moments where maybe you feel a little bit less good about putting him in a jam. But he's still going to get a bunch of opportunities on the weekend, as he should. He was 1A, 1B on a College World Series team out of a bullpen that leaned on their bullpen a lot. So he can do it. He has the talent to do it. You just got to get right. He's just got to be better. But I don't think you change a whole lot from it if you're Tennessee of what you're doing. I think you have to trust him and just hope he figures it out.
I guess what you would do is not put him in such high leverage spots moving forward for right now. I guess that's what you have to do.
That would be the pivot.
Yeah.
Because I think my thing, he's not a strikeout guy. And he wasn't a strikeout guy last year.
It's weird to be a high velo guy but not strike people out. It's an odd. Yes. His game is odd.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But to that point, like maybe a little bit less runners on second and third, one out, and that's just theoretical. That didn't happen this weekend or anything. But those type of situations, maybe a little bit less of going to him there because he doesn't have the strikeout stuff. But just as a whole, when it comes to how many innings you're going to ask of him or you're going to give him a game and hope he takes it and runs with it in the middle, that I think is all the same. But you're right. The spots, the high leverage spots that you maybe pick to go to him, I think you maybe chill out on a little bit for the time being. But for the most part, I think you just keep riding with him. And as Tony Vitello likes to say, if it doesn't go well, you put your head on the pillow at night and you feel okay about it.
But who is that guy for Tennessee? I guess it's Lloyd, but you saw him be so good in a extended relief here. I don't know what Lloyd's better at. I think he's good at all things, but who would be that guy you trust the most in a jam like that?
Franklin's probably the other one. I would say it's those two, Lloyd and Franklin.
Krenzel, he's been good in high leverage spots.
He has, yeah. And I mean, I think it would look like it does with Snead. It's not going to look like Aaron Combs in 23, where it's like, all right, we'll bring you in for two batters because you're a great strikeout guy. Like Snead right now, to bring him in these spots with wanting him to get out of the jam, but the idea is for him to pitch 2 innings after that. I think that kind of has to be what it is for Krenzel, especially because he's more of a long relief type guy. But even to a certain extent with Lloyd and Franklin too.
Yeah. Didn't mention Braden Krenzel yet, but had started the midweek on Tuesday after dealing with a sickness that took him out for a couple weeks, comes in game 3 and, wasn't
after Snead.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was after Arvidsson actually. Arvidsson come in.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Krenzel walked. It wasn't really that great of an outing. Got 2 outs, walked a couple of guys. Didn't look like his best self, but still think Krenzel's a guy who can get some key outs. But I talked about those horses that Tennessee has in these bullpen that I think Tennessee's going to rely on. I don't know if Krenzel's at the top of that group, but he's certainly one that's going to continue to get outs on the weekend.
For sure, I think it's just about like how can you get back to the guy he was pre 2.5 week absence or whatever it ended up being, because that guy could help Tennessee a ton. And I think either way he's going to have a role. It's just, can he, how good can he be? What level can he get to for Tennessee?
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I don't want to say it's unfair because it's these guys' jobs to do this, but it has become more important that the bullpen be good because of how bad the offense is. Like, you can't afford to fall into a 3-run hole anymore. Like, it just can't happen. The game's over. Like, when Auburn took a 4-0 lead, did anyone think that Tennessee was going to be able to come back?
No.
It was over like that. Bang. 1 inning, done. That's just the nature of this. So that just can't happen.
Yeah, I know you're right. And I used this phrase on our buddy Chase Thomas's podcast earlier today. I don't really know if you hear the phrase complimentary football a lot. You don't really hear that with baseball. Maybe it is a phrase and I just don't know. Tennessee does not play complimentary baseball at all. It feels like every little issue spirals on itself and nobody's ever able to pick it up. And I think that's kind of the same way where pitching staff struggles, the offense isn't capable of picking it up. It doesn't really feel like. There's been some instances when the offense struggles and the pitching staff is good enough. But to your point, it just feels like there's an extra pressure on them right now.
Right. Well, let's talk about the starters for a sec. Liam Doyle, not really much to get into. And we mentioned Russell already, but Doyle comes in those extras, struggles with command a little bit, but, doesn't let anything get to him. Of course, has the electric moment with tagging Bristol Carter there at home plate. Ryan mentioned it, the high awareness play that really fired everything up. Got ejected for it, even though it wasn't announced. But it doesn't really matter because Doyle will be able to pitch Friday night against Vanderbilt. It's only a 2-game suspension because he's a reliever. So Tennessee kind of got fortunate there. So he'll be good to go Friday night. And the Marcus Phillips guy we should talk about, not an eventful outing from him. It wasn't as good as it was obviously at LSU. I didn't see much of his outing, so I'm going to defer to you a lot here, Ryan. But, looking at the stats, it just felt like an average, maybe slightly below average Marcus Phillips outing. A high pitch count for only 4 1/3, 85.
Yeah, I felt like his command struggled, a smidge. I think average is just like the best word for it. It didn't feel like at any point where he was really bad or any point where he was really dominant. Like you said, the pitch count was high, so you knew that he wasn't going to get super deep in the game as it started to unfold a little bit. You maybe hoped that he could have gotten those 2 more outs and gotten through the 5th inning, but it made sense to go to bullpen when they did. So, I think average is not a ton to say about it. You would probably like to see him repeat what he did at LSU, but at the same time, I think you're fine with what was a solid outing and not being like, if he had a bad outing, you'd have been like, all right, was that LSU thing just a one-off because he'd had a couple rough outings before that? It was definitely solid enough for Tennessee, especially in obviously a game that they were in the end able to win.
Massive strikeout from him there in the 4th with the bases loaded. So that was a big moment. And it was Rembert too. And he got the play at home too prior on that fielder's choice.
Very nice play.
So yeah, defensive play, strikes out.
He's very good defensively.
Definitely. That arm, he's accurate with that arm thrown to first on ground balls, and then strikes out their leadoff hitter to strain them loaded. So massive moment there. That was the best. The extras win, the walk-off, of course, is the highlight for Tennessee's weekend. But that mound stretch of Phillips doing that and then Lloyd coming in and shoving like he did, that was a really good stretch there for Tennessee on the mounds. And, the offense was kind of not doing much, but Fargo's homer was able to be enough there to send it to extras. So a fun game was Saturday. Can't say the same about the other two.
Yeah, no, it was a fun game. And I think a very good environment, especially on Sunday when they resumed in extras. I don't know, maybe this is a bit because neither of us are baseball purists. So maybe this is a baseball purist question for someone out there listening to us, if anybody is this. Is it just like some huge faux pas to like tag someone even slightly hard? Because LSU was up in a fuss last week when Phillips did it. Like, again, very slight push from Doyle. Very slight push from Phillips. And it's like you would have thought that he pulled out a baseball bat and whacked him in the shins if you looked at some of these people on Twitter. And I get some of it's just people that don't like Tennessee baseball.
Yeah.
But it's almost to the point where I'm like, am I missing something here? Because they were both jawing at each other. So I don't really get why people would be attacking Doyle for the jawing when they were both doing it.
I think Doyle kind of squared him up a bit. I think Doyle, stood up super tall and just kind of, he didn't shove him, but he just kind of nudged him and he like shook, like did his head like this. I know if you're not watching, you don't know what I'm talking about. Kind of like shook his head a little bit. He's like, that's right. That he didn't say that, but that's almost the vibe he gave up with his move. Like, yeah, that's right. Fair. So that in a high emotion, he's going to be like, man, screw you. Like, and then it's just going to spiral. So I think Doyle was a little aggressive with his tag, but the Phillips one I recall, and Fisher had one too that was not bad at all that the opposing team got kind of mad about. I can't remember if that was game 1 of this series or LSU.
It was this series. I can't remember. On
the first base line, he tagged someone. So yeah, I don't know about that in general. Like you said, tagging someone even with the remotely little bit of strength is a bad thing to do. But I did think Doyle's was making a little bit of a point to do that, I think.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it is.
And he's also a maniac too. Like Doyle's crazy.
Exactly.
So.
Well, the guy was also trying to steal home. The dude was also trying to catch him sleeping and steal home. So I think there's like a little bit of
like nice try.
Yeah, you didn't catch me sleeping.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, Doyle's just obviously a very high energy guy when he's on the mound.
Ejecting Doyle and not Carter is super bush league though. Like if I don't think it was that bad to where one had to be ejected and the other. It should have been 2 ejections or 0, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and it should have been 0.
Yeah, it looked like it could have gotten out of control, but everything got under
Both
control relatively quickly.
both Tennessee's coaches, Auburn's coaches, home plate umpire, everybody did a really good job, I thought, of de-escalating that. Even someone, I can't remember what Tennessee player came in, but one Tennessee player ran in and kind of pushed Doyle out of the way too. So really everybody I thought involved handled it well.
Was it Ross? Who pulled Bargo off?
It was Ross. Ross
He
came flying
irked
in
the
from first
hell out of
base.
him. It was wild. Like Bargo was coming in and dude, assistant coach just like chunked him off to the right.
Ross
No.
came flying in like the and you seen other guys?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, and Will Ferrell. It was like the bad cop scene where Will Ferrell comes running in and like throws him over the table. That was Ross's vibe. Like just coming in and running in with such energy and throwing Barco
Yeah.
out of the way.
No. Yeah, it was a crazy moment for sure. Um all right, well, yeah, I think we covered most of this pitching staff here. It's like I said, it's just kind of the nature of what Tennessee is right now. There's going to be a lot of close games with the way the offense is. It amplifies the significance of these starters being able to give you good performances, of this bullpen not letting things spiral, not letting a lead get too out of control. So Tennessee's just going to be in a ton of close games, I think, going down the stretch, and they're going to have to ride these guys because, frankly, Ryan, I don't see this offense just turning things around magically. I just think they kind of are what they are. They have to be better, but how much better are they going to be? I'm not really confident that it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to turn into a lot of 8 or 9 game or 8 or 9 run production. It
Yeah,
needs to turn into 4 or 5. Something that gives you a chance to win. When you're
yeah.
scoring 1 run, you're not giving yourself any chance to win unless Liam Doyle's on the mound, and you're giving yourself a chance at least. But yeah, no, I'm with you.
And Tony Vitello kind of talked about the team's approach and how, maybe the emotions get to this team too much. Of course, we're not in the dugout or anything like that, but that's something I think can be improved upon. That is something that can be fixed relatively quickly. Is just how this team approaches a game, how it handles itself during a game, and coaching is a big part of that, and Tony obviously knows that. But if Tony truly believes that is like maybe the biggest problem of it all, then I think that's honestly kind of a good thing because that is something that can get under control more than just magically hitting the baseball better moving forward. If a lot of it's mental and emotional things, I think that's something that can be solved easier than the others.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really tend to think that's what it is the biggest issue, but I would agree it probably would be better if that was it.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like what Tony said and stuff,
Yes.
because that's what he defers to pretty much all the time is that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Tennessee 14-10 in league play now. Is that correct?
I think so.
14-10 in SEC play. Ryan, are you at all concerned about this team finding itself on the bubble and potentially not hosting an NCAA regional?
Yeah, I think I am. Just when you look at what's left on the schedule, I mean, a really, really hard series to end it against Arkansas, and it's not like not Vanderbilt's just fantastic, but it's not like you feel great about Vanderbilt, about Tennessee just winning that series. So, I mean, I could pretty easily see a world where Tennessee goes 1-5 or 2-4, and 2-4 probably need. I mean, I'm not super up to date with the bubble, but probably need a win in Hoover if you're going to be 16-14 to host. So, if I still had to bet, I would bet on them hosting a regional. Obviously, not going to be top 8, but I definitely think it's there's some concern there.
More likely that Tennessee doesn't host a regional or that it hosts a super. It's a top 8 seed.
As a top 8 seed, more likely they don't host a regional.
Wait, repeat that.
As a top 8 seed, I think it's more likely Tennessee hosting a supers as a top 8 seed. I think it's more likely that they miss a regional. I think it's probably when you factor in maybe Tennessee's 15
Oh, okay.
and the lower seed wins.
I meant yes, top 8 seed or outside the top 16, which is more likely?
Yeah, outside the top 16.
I think I agree because 1-5 is certainly on the table. I mean, no one would be surprised if Vandy takes 2 of 3, and then you get swept in Fayetteville. Like that's a real possibility here. At the same time, though, Tennessee's kind of owned Vandy lately. Sweeping them is on the table if you can just really turn things around. And then if you knock off Arkansas, like Arkansas is not perfect, right? They've dropped series, so
Yeah.
5 wins would put you at 19. I think you're a top 8 seed.
Yeah, you are. I just think it's more likely to go 1-5 than 5-1.
I would agree, but both are possible.
Yes, it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to get a top 8 seed.
What would be your prediction?
Probably 2-4. I set the over/under at 2.5.
2-4 is mine as well. 16 and 14, you're probably seeded 13 through 16.
Yeah, I would think closer to 16, but
should be fine though. 16 and 14, I think you'll be fine.
Probably want to win one in Hoover to feel better, but yeah, should be fine.
Well, big series this weekend against Vanderbilt. 5:30 p.m. Eastern time is first pitch on Friday for the series opener. 5 p.m. on Saturday, and then 3 on Sunday. All 3 games televised. First one SEC Network, last 2 E2. Any final notes here, Ryan, before we hop on out of here?
No, I think we've hit on just about all of it.
Do you have a early week prediction for this weekend? You said 2-4. Are you saying 1 win a pop or a series win against Vanderbilt?
I'll say 1 win a pop.
Man, that would make 4 straight home series losses.
I don't know,
That's
man.
Really bad.
I mean, it is 3 straight home series losses is bad. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if Tennessee goes out and wins 2 out of 3 this weekend. I think it's very much in play. I don't know. I think I'm just maybe at the point right now I need to see them put some stuff together and win some games before I predict it.
I'm going to say they do it. I'll be the optimist.
All right.
I'm going to say Tennessee beats Vandy. There was enough crap that happened this weekend, and it was just demoralizing there, that I think it's good. This is the biggest wake-up call so far. Like, Kentucky should have been, but then you go to LSU and you have a really good game, and it's a dang tough opponent on the road. But then you come back home and lay 2 A's yet again. I'm going to say this is the bigger wake-up call Tennessee's had. So, yeah. I'm going to say they can get it done. That'll do it for this edition of the Rock Top Insider Diamond Pass podcast. You want to follow Ryan, you can do that at rshump00 on X. I'm at Jack Foster Media, of course. Follow at Rock Top Insider for all of your Tennessee athletics coverage needs. You can also stay up to date at rocktopinsider.com and follow the live update threads. Every single game can't watch. Got you covered there at bat by at bat. Detailed threads for every single game. For Ryan, I'm Jack. We'll see you next time on the Rock Top Insider Diamond Pass.